people, I can give you the big arc, the high level arc, and maybe that helps. And then, because I do want to get to this material, because I think what I'm going to show you today, I was talking to Grace and Mitch about this. In fact, I'll start with kind of part of my journey. I work now as what's called a go-to-market advisor in the operating group at Scale Venture Partners. It's a 24-year-old venture cap firm. They specialize in Series A, B2B SaaS companies, so pretty specific, and those companies are typically selling to mid-market or enterprise. Notable kind of exits from Scale. In fact, I have a slide in here for that. Like notable exits are Box, DocuSign. I mean, raise your hand if you've seen, know of one of these companies, right? Yeah. So this is some notable exits. There have been other ones, and then this is like, I'm kind of getting into my presentation before I do it. This has changed even now. There's probably 4 or 5 more logos on this slide of the companies that are in the Scale Venture portfolio that I work with on a daily basis. So as an executive in residence / go-to-market advisor, my job is to help the portfolio on sales and marketing. That's it. And the insight from the partnership is that, look, we make a bet, an investment in a startup. It's kind of inherent that this team has a novel concept, hopefully, some technology secret sauce, but that is not enough. You cannot become successful by having the better mousetrap. It requires innovating on the go-to-market dimension, right? And so that's what we do. So there's a team of people that work with the portfolio on sales and marketing, on go-to-market, to help them outperform their competitors. And I love it because I get to work, the portfolio's got 60 companies in it, and I get to work with a different company almost every day, sometimes over a longer period. The way I got here, engineering at Michigan, went and became a software developer working at Accenture. Back then it was Anderson Consulting, and worked on very large scale distributed systems for telephone companies. None of them you would recognize because they're all merged into Verizon or AT&T now. But companies like Bell Atlantic or Cincinnati Bell, and we were doing crazy things like migrating their systems from Bell core proprietary operating systems onto Unix back then, right? Like crazy stuff like that. I left there and I joined a company. So one of the things about me, I guess, about my entrepreneurial journey is that I've been able to be present and be involved in the companies that were at the inflection point in technology. Twice. And those 2 times were this first job after Accenture, where I worked for a company called Net Gravity, which no one has heard of because it was, back in 1996. And but there were 2 companies in the entire world at that time that enabled websites to target and sell ads on the website, and we were one of them. The other one was DoubleClick. And so I personally installed the ad serving systems at CNN, Wired, Weather Channel, and like 50 other companies out there. And so I got my hands really dirty implementing technology so that it could make money for a customer. We merged with, so we had an IPO at Net Gravity, which was phenomenal. And then about a year or 2 later, we actually got acquired by DoubleClick. And then DoubleClick went on to be acquired by Google. And today, sometimes you'll see, if you get an ad or your page is loading, you'll see a little HTTP request that says something about, doubleclick.net, ad.doubleclick.net. And that's technology that's been around for a really long time. From there, I started a company. It'll maybe come up when we talk a little bit more about pricing. We had this crazy idea that we would build a website, let people upload videos, and then we would make money from advertising. I don't know if you guys have ever thought of an idea like that, or if you've heard of something like that. I don't know. But it was not YouTube. And it was very bad timing, so I learned a really valuable lesson there. The other thing is the only outcome from that was that I learned a bunch. So we had to scuttle the company, but it was a great learning experience. We'll talk, I can answer questions about that too. Then I went to work at VMware. At the time, VMware was a smallish company that sold desktop software to developers and QA people. And it literally, I think 98% of our revenue was a credit card swipe. And what I hadn't really thought of or put together was that this company was literally, and you don't get to do this every time, I was fortunate, literally changed the way computing happens for the rest of history. And that is what VMware did. They did something called a hypervisor, which is very fancy. All it means is that these PhD computer scientists wrote software that mimicked an x86 processor. And the reason that was really important is that the entire world ran on Intel processors, and everyone had their own data center. Like legitimately, like JP Morgan, other banks had between 50 and 150,000 servers that they ran themselves. When they would deploy a data center, it would be $1 billion, just table stakes. And we could reduce their footprint of servers 100 to 1. So imagine that, right? Going from 100,000 servers to 1,000, right? You could fit 1,000 in a much smaller room. So that company printed money. I mean, it was insane how much money we made and how fast we made money, because the return on investment was less than 2 years. And we gave companies with the software all these capabilities they never had before. Why did it change history? Because virtualization is the way all cloud computing works now. You cannot use a cloud service without having it run on some sort of virtualized environment, whether it's a container or something else. And so we did not go public, but we were purchased by EMC, so we had an exit there. And then 2, 3, 4 years later, they floated 11% of the company on an IPO, so then we had another exit from that. So I was very fortunate to kind of be at 2 different companies that literally defined 2 different computing modes in the industry, and then on top of that, had success along the way. And I learned that those 2 are not always connected. And then did a bunch of advising and consulting and found my way through the Michigan Network to Scale Venture Partners. So that's kind of how I landed there. And I'll talk more about that as we go through this, and you guys can ask questions too. So that's kind of like the arc. And the one thing I'll add to that is, maybe I'll just kind of get into the presentation now. Oh, I skipped Google. I was at Google for 3 years, and my job there was I was responsible for the go-to-market strategy for Google Workspace. You guys use that here. Michigan's actually a huge customer. So that's a platform with 3 billion users. So I had to run the go-to-market strategy cross-functional group across all of Google Cloud to put that GTM together. And as you can imagine, I mean, it's, there's an engineering team of 2,000, 3,000 people. There's a sales team of 2,000 people. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so I learned a whole bunch there. That was a lot of fun. Okay. I would like to take credit for what was on the slide Grace showed, but I did not do all of that for all of Google Cloud. That's a much bigger job than I had. No. Keep it. It makes me look better. Okay, so yeah, I think this is I guess this is one way to look at it. So through my career, I think what's different about me, I kind of diddled around. I just went wherever my curiosity took me, and I found cool projects to work on, and then I just raised my hand and offered to be of assistance. And that's kind of how my career went. So it's a real crazy, jagged line. I don't recommend to anybody. And I think the only reason it worked out is because I got lucky at NetGravity, DoubleClick, and VMware, and all of that. But what it did give me is a systems perspective of how stuff works in a company. And so I've worked in all these jobs that are in these gears here. And so I know when you turn one knob in a company to maybe, increase your sales, I know how that affects customer success. I know how it affects the sales team, the marketing team. I know what it means for the monetization and pricing, all of those things. For me, it's one big just connected system, and you can't touch one part of a company without changing things in the other parts. Most of the time, you don't know that. So part of what I do is try to teach people or have them learn through experience. It's almost like driving a car. Like the more you drive the car, you just get a feel for it. You know how it operates. That's kind of what I have with businesses now. And so part of what I try to do is give you not the theory, but a few practical ways that you can look at something, whether it's a sales model or a customer set or a market, and you can use a framework to just get a hedge on it, right? You can get an insight on it. So that's what we're going to talk about today with all this. I also do a bunch of work at UC Berkeley. I'm an advisor there, guest lecturer, UC Berkeley, and I'm part of a team that does, we actually export a lot of the Berkeley entrepreneurial and innovation stuff. So I was in Taipei earlier this year, going to Japan, Tokyo. I was in Tokyo twice and Osaka twice last year, as these governments are now spending money, and something I'm talking to the university about here, about, hey, how does Michigan become a thought leader in helping these other governments like Japan, like Taiwan, and Korea start to really foster and innovation. Okay, so the good news is you're going to sit through a couple of these slides, but you don't have to do that on Thursday because they're the same slides. But this is kind of like, for me, these are sort of my first principles. I try to really stay far away from falling in love with a product or a product idea. And I know that sounds crazy because you're being told to come up with a product or what you're going to do. But the point is that product, its whole job is to actually just deliver a benefit that the customer is going to pay for and solve a problem. And so by focusing on I actually wrote a blog post on this. By focusing on the problem, I think it's on LinkedIn. By focusing on the problem, that'll take care of everything else. But if you focus on your product, it'll take you in the wrong direction, and you'll literally build the wrong thing for the business. All right, so let's just get through this. And what I want to do is introduce you. There is a couple things we're going to do here. I kind of invented a fictional product. It's somewhat techy, but it's this product called POSH. It stands for preemptive or predictive optimization for system health. It's just an API monitoring tool. It's just a developer tool. So just think of it that way. If you don't know this space, just think it's a dev tool. Developers use it to build infrastructure and to manage the technology that they built. That's it. Really straightforward. Okay. You don't need to see all of this, but what we're going to do is we're going to jump into this. Who knows about their target customer base? Who's thinking about a target customer set right now? Okay, tell me about your target customer.
Japanese language educators.
Okay, how many of them are there?
The U.S.
You tell me.
In general, in the U.S. there's 3,000 roughly.
3,000. Okay, and can you tell me anything else about that target customer?
Most people are from Japan. They're very conservative when it comes to adopting new tools.
Okay, good. That's interesting. Okay, anybody else? Who has a target customer that they know? Maria?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's K-pop fans. We could say international K-pop fans, and if you had to, and then in terms of the numbers, millions, but there's no like specific count because
Yeah.
no one keeps track of that.
Yeah, no one keeps track of it?
Yeah, there's like no official number.
Can you bottom up it?
If I pick a specific fandom, like 27
Yeah.
like accounts are on one like community.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything special about K-pop? That audience?
Yeah, they're really active with engagement and on being on social media.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Who else has got a target customer? Yep. Here, Garrett? Yeah.
Parents, care providers, building something for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds.
Great.
So educators, parents, care providers, everyone who helps teach and serve 4, 5, and 6-year-olds.
Okay, how many of them are there?
Well, there's 390 million 4, 5, and 6-year-olds who have access to internet-connected devices globally.
Yeah.
And so their parents are, one or more than 390 million.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Yep.
So,
Is it Rui? How do you spell it? Yeah, pronounce it.
Hui.
Oh, Hui. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
I was going to customers like small and medium-sized Portuguese hotels that consume between 2,400 euros to 72,000 euros of electricity annually.
Okay, tell me more. Why such a specific range?
So because like from my experience of selling the product to them, like that's where we can create the most value because they lack cash to invest
Okay.
in energy saving solutions. So
Nice. Okay, great. So this is all very good. I know some of you are already, developing some ideas for this. So part of what's so important about this, there's a whole bunch of slides here, but I think it's better if we just talk it through. This idea of an ICP stands for Ideal Customer Profile. I try to rewrite this into something a little different, and I'll show you that in a minute. The whole point of this, and by the way, the reason, sorry, I'm backing up here. My ADD is getting in the way. Part of the reason we're doing this is I suggested to Grace and Mitch that, I see this problem with every single day in the companies that I work with at UC Berkeley, at Scale Venture Partners, outside of that group, like Series A, B, C companies. They think they know who their target customer is, and they absolutely don't. They have not defined it in a way that creates the focus that they need to execute how they're going to innovate on distribution to reach that customer. And so what I'm trying to do today is give you all a little bit of an edge, a framework to think more strategically and frankly more detailed about ideal customers. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. And you know this, startups, right? Product market fit, uncertainty, limited resources. So I think for students like yourselves and for seed stage and these days not many A, but definitely seed stage, this idea of an ideal customer profile, I think it's wrong. I think you hear a lot about it, and I think it's wrong. And the reason is that the ICP is too many customers. Now, who here is trying to build for a big market? Okay. Oh, wait. Now, there's some people that okay, let me do that again. Who here is trying to build for a big market? Okay. All right. Now here, are you guys, okay. Now, keep your hand up if you intend to raise money from a venture capital firm. Okay. All right, good. I think that's okay. The problem we get into is when you're thinking you're going to raise money from a VC and you don't think you have a big market, because VCs care about one thing before they care about anything else, and that is that you're building for a big market. So who's heard that one, right? You've got to build for a big market. So who's executing on that plan? Build for the big market. Okay. Anybody else building for that plan? Build for the big market? Okay. I think this is where everybody goes wrong. I hate to say it, but I think this is where everybody goes wrong. And now that I think I might have your attention, let's talk about why. As a startup, you cannot address the customers that you think you need to build your business. You don't have enough people, you don't have enough attention, you definitely don't have enough money. So you have to find the earliest of early customers that will be your friend. These are customers, right? I call it ECP. These are people that you can win right now, right? They're gonna get, whatever your product looks like right now, they will get value out of it. They are willing to work with you because you are not a viable entity. You are a startup. The definition of a startup is a group of people in search of a business model. Like, you're not viable. So you have to find people who are going to believe what you say and believe you're going to be around to deliver. Just let that settle in for a second. These customers also need to have a certain amount of urgency so that they're willing to work with you. They have to be able to make quick decisions, and they need, honestly, not to just go in a corner after you've given them a product or sold them something. They need to be able to be a partner to you to actually give you feedback. If they can't, if you're talking to a company or a would-be customer that cannot do any one of these things, you should not talk to them. because it will be a colossal waste of time. If you want to learn from them, that's fine. But if you're trying to onboard them to use your product, it's a waste of time. We're not talking about customer discovery here. We're talking about trying to find a company to use your product or a person to use your product. Okay, so I define it this way, right? A ECP is this detailed description, right? Who's most likely to take a risk on you, right, and your product, but they also have a problem that's urgent, important, and valuable if they solve it, okay? All right, so I just want to talk, I'm going to throw this up here. We're not going to spend a bunch of time on this, but I just did a little comparison. By the way, you'll get all these slides, so you don't need to take pictures and whatever, and there's actually speaker notes on a bunch of these. But the point is, I just went through kind of a side-by-side so you could learn what's Pete talking about? What's this idea of an ECP? So I tried to spell it out on a table here, okay? Let's focus on what this really means. Have you guys talked about total addressable market? Okay, all right, we know what that is, right? TAM, every single possible company that you could sell to, right? No company ever sells to the entire TAM, right? We get that. It's inherent in the description. You can't sell to that because the moment you become successful, other companies enter the market and compete with you. And it's just kind of the dynamic, the physics of business. So who's heard of the SAM? The serviceable addressable market. Have you guys talked about this? Yeah, okay. And then SOM, obtainable market. Okay, and this is probably where you guys have stopped. I'm going to build a product for the SOM. No, it's too big. The SOM is too big. Your product, if you are a startup and you're trying to raise capital, you're using some of your own capital, you got friends, whatever, this market is too big. You cannot build a repeatable go-to-market for that many different customers. And the reason is that this SOM, and I know, let me say this, there's something I tell the audiences at Skydeck, which is at Berkeley. I'm like, do not confuse your investor pitch with your product strategy and go-to-market strategy. You show the investors a large market, but if you try to execute that, you will fail because you can't reach that market. So what you show them is, this is how I'm going to start. Here's who I'm going to target first. And I'll tell you, from a B2B perspective, sometimes it's 4 companies. And I know you feel like you'd be laughed out of the room, but that's actually what investors want to see. They want to say, oh, you have a product, there's actually 1,000 companies in the entire world. For this, let's say you're selling, I don't know, some jet engine part supplier, right? There's only so many of those companies. Well, I'm going to start with 1 or 2. That's okay, right? The mistake is to think you're going to go sell to all of them. And the reason is, when you get to this SOM, this obtainable market, all the customers still have too many different needs. They want too many different things. This is when you find yourself spinning. You're like, oh my gosh, this one wants this one wants that. Should I pick this big company that says they'll pay me all this money? Then you become a consulting shop for them because you're trying to address every one of the needs that you can't fulfill yet. Your product does not have the ability to solve all the use cases, and even if it could, you don't have any sales and marketing people to run all of the different messaging, sales plays, motions, top of funnel marketing, demand gen. You can't do it. It's too much. What you really need is to be able to find a set of companies where the few resources you have, you can have one positioning, one messaging, one motion, and you can repeat that because all of the customers want the same thing. That's what we're trying to find with an early customer profile. How's this going so far? Good? So we all here think bigger. Yes, true, big market. I think you need to think smaller. When you first get started, think smaller, and that means more focused. So how do we do that? So I have this idea called the Serviceable Minimum Market, and it sits inside the SOM. It's the smallest viable segment where you can start to get real traction. It needs to be so small, you're embarrassed how few customers are in it, right? The same way, your MVP. You should be embarrassed about getting that MVP out the door, right? But shipping and getting things out into customers' hands is the priority over everything else. Why? Because your startup velocity is limited at the rate that you make decisions. And you can only make decisions when you have feedback. That only happens when you actually confront the customer with your plan. So here's what really happens. I think, oh, this is not showing up really well. I think serviceable minimum market is when you're trying to prove that your product can actually solve a problem. I think the obtainable market, this isn't coming through. It's okay. This is just SOM. The obtainable market is like product market fit. Oh, look, I highlighted in. And then I think you start getting product, what I call product go-to-market fit. This is a repeatable, predictable, scalable, profitable way to find new customers and expand business with existing customers. This is super, 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 super hard to get to. Way harder than building a product is getting to product go-to-market fit. And then, over time, maybe you eat into the TAM, but we all know you never really get there. So this is the ECP. The ECP is supposed to take you from product problem fit to this idea around product market fit. And then I think this ICP takes you the next step. And then at this time, you're probably looking at 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 segments that you're differentiating for. You simply cannot differentiate what you sell and how you sell it to that many segments when you're an early stage startup. It's just impossible. I know it. I've worked with literally 1,000 companies, and so you're getting the benefit of all of that. These are not the same. Early customer profile, right? Initial stages. It's not the same as an ideal customer profile. So who wants to know how to build one of these? Actually get your ECP down. You guys want to do that? Okay. I mean, isn't everybody supposed to raise their hand?
Yes.
I mean, what is this?
How?
How?
Raising of hands in their head.
I mean, I hope so. Okay, here's the deal. When you guys start thinking about ideal customers, I heard a lot here, right? So, Hui, tell me again. These are Portuguese hotels.
Small and medium-sized hotels spend like 2.4 thousand euros to 72,000 euros annually on electricity.
I mean, that is specific, right? Think about that. And how many hotels are below that band? And it's a rhetorical question, below that band and above that band, right? How many hotels are not small and medium? Okay, so that's firmographic. Firmographic is what size company is it, how many employees, how much revenue, what industry is it in? It's all of those characteristics. There's technographic, right? What kinds of technology do they use? What systems do they have? What other products are they using already? There's also behavioral, right? And so we'll get into these. These things start to look like, what was that? There we go. So this is kind of a bigger, more detailed breakdown, right? So geographic, annual revenue, tech adoption profile, are they risk averse or are they risk seeking? Do they want to make a quantum leap when they make a change, or are they trying to keep the status quo? That's tech adoption profile. Techno and behavioral. Okay. However, if you go a little bit further, ICPs, if you want to build a better ICP, this was good. If you have these 3 things, this is a good start. Better is this. You're going to add in the idea of what is the exact need, the job to be done that this company is doing, and how do they measure the business value of solving the problem? That's the question. How do they measure the value? So in a consumer case, it's a little bit different. I am not a consumer guy. You need to talk to my wife. She's been in consumer marketing for 35 years. But it's similar about finding what does the individual value. right? What are they trying to get out of it? There's a question, Hui. Yep.
Shouldn't you also include like specific working organizational benefit?
Say that again. Who?
Like the employee that will actually
Yes.
benefit from.
Good point. That's why I don't have a slide here. Let me find this slide, Hui. See, you made me, now I'm gonna have to go back into the dregs back here to show you this. Let me see where I have this. This is down here, right here. So I like to call what we're talking about ICP, ideal company profile. Ideal company profile. Why? Because that term is different from customer. When you say customer, you might think who's the buyer, and that's not what the ICP is in a B2B sense. In a B2B, it's the company. Inside the company, there are ideal buyer personas and there are ideal user personas. Something we're not covering here is there's an entire hour-long presentation I can give you, a workshop, around how to map this, because you need to know who is involved in the buying decision, how does the buying process work, what are the motivations, what are the requirements, what are the jobs and titles of those people, what are their influence, who are the detractors, like you go on and on and on and on. We're not doing that here, but you're exactly right. You do eventually need to map out who are the people you're actually going to talk to. I'm just trying to get you to find the companies or the customers that are going to be willing to even talk to you. Okay. Does that help?
Quick time check, you have about 25 minutes.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, boy. Okay, so we were here, right?
Actually, 35 minutes.
35, good. Thank you for that. So, so let's talk about, I think these are the 6, is this where we were? I think so, right? Yeah, better ICPs, right? Need these needs and job. Okay, but I think startups, you need to go even further. And so what I'm going to give to you is like kind of like the nth degree, right? So we talked about firmographic, technographic, and behavioral. And then we added in like needs and value. And so now we're going to take a look at a few other things. So I think there are 6 common characteristics. So one is the needs and the job. Are you guys studying like jobs to be done? Yeah? You got?
Value proposition canvas.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, that's good. I think I honestly, in my experience, if there is a silver bullet in entrepreneurship, jobs to be done is it. Like, go talk to the customer, they will tell you everything you need to know to build a product that they will buy from you. Like, literally, it's that straightforward. Okay, this is important. So there's needs, like what is the job they're trying to get done? But then there is, what is the value, the value to the customer that is unlocked when they solve the problem? You have to know what that is. That gets picked up in customer discovery. These customer discovery is about asking the customer questions and listening. It means you talk 15% of the time, they talk 85% of the time, and all you do is ask questions like, why is that? Tell me more. Why? Who else is strongly aware of that or cares about that? Why is that? Like, that's all you do. You're an investigative journalist, and then they just tell you everything, and you use the Toyota framework of 5 whys, and you get to the root cause. And you develop an insight that your competitors won't because they're too lazy to go ask those questions. All right. You need to understand not only like what are the jobs, but how do they prioritize, how they will filter or assess if this is going to be a problem that a product they'll use to address their needs. Urgency. The problem you're addressing needs to be something they need to fix now. Not next year, not next half. It needs to be this week, this month, this quarter, right? And that urgency, I mean, maybe you can't fulfill it right now, but it's telling you that this is an urgent problem. But it's not enough. They need to be able to make a quick decision. We talked about that. And implementation readiness. They actually have to be able to use what you give them to have an effect on the problem. If they can't do these things, you just can't work with them because they won't give you the feedback you need to get a decision and to move forward. I want to make a point about problem urgency. There's really 2 dimensions here. I thought like a hexagon would be better than a septagon, so I didn't make it 7 and 6. But urgency is 2 things. It's not only urgency, but it's importance. Who can tell me the difference? Anybody? Tell me the difference, why you should be thinking about importance and urgency. Hui, we're going to give you a break. You're answering all the questions.
Yeah.
Maria's got her hand.
Maria, sorry, thank you.
Because if you don't care about something just because it's urgent doesn't necessarily, like you have to be forced to go do it.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Like somebody in the realm of the problem you're solving, the problem needs to be priority 1 or 2. It cannot be priority 3. Priority 3 never gets addressed. It just doesn't. It never gets, because by the time they get around to priority 1, there's a new priority 2. Like, it just doesn't happen. So you need to find problems that are worth solving. I have a whole other talk on that one. I'll get you guys the link, reminder. I did a talk for Berkeley, and I'll send that over to you guys. You've got to find problems that are worth solving. And my realm is B2B software. Some of you might be doing some social entrepreneurship, so the economics are different, but it would be a mistake to not think economics are involved. There are always economics involved. But understanding the importance, is there a person in the buying group for which this is a priority 1 issue? If you can't find a person in the buying group where it's priority 1, move on. I'm telling you, I work with Series A, these are companies that have raised 20, 30, 50, $100 million, and I'm looking at data of where they spend their sales time, and I look at each stage of the sales process, and I see they're spending months, and the opportunity never closes. And it's because they never actually qualified the importance and the urgency around it.
What if you create the problem instead of finding?
Tell me more.
There are products that make you feel like you.
My wife says I create problems all the time. But go ahead. Go ahead. I want to know. Go ahead.
There are a lot of products that make you feel like you have that problem, but you actually don't need them. I can.
Name one.
There are a lot of them.
But-
Off the top of my head, there's this drink that's like a probiotic drink. But do you actually need it?
Well,
Or they market it as you need it because your gut is broken.
right.
I mean, like every cosmetic product ever.
Exactly. Right?
Tell
Or
you,
your
you've got a
skin is
problem,
So-
and we're going to sell you the solution.
Yeah. So again, my frame of reference, so what I skipped over is I'm a hammer and everything in the world is a nail. You guys ever hear that expression before? Right? When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I'm a B2B software guy, so everything looks like a B2B problem to me. In the consumer world, it's different. It's about taste. It's about aspiration. A lot of the emotional and social components of a job to be, if you look at jobs to be done, there's actually 3 dimensions of any job. Functional, just get it done, but the social and emotional dimensions. And so maybe cosmetics have some functional dimension. I want, what's the foundation, right? Foundation, right? My wife worked for Sephora for 21 years. She was head of marketing there. I should know these things. Right? They have some functional purpose, but it's a lot about aspiration. It's about how people feel about it, right? So I'm not your guy on that. If you want to talk about how to make somebody feel aspirational about a certain product, Nike does this, right? Just do it. I mean, all of the consumer brands, it's about you self-actualizing about what you could be with this product. It's a very different world. That's one of the reasons why, because my brain doesn't work this way, it's one of the reasons why I love B2B, because it's mostly rational.
And again, that is a B2C play versus B2B.
Yeah.
But right, for example, after my pregnancy and my entire gut biome was changed, and I got a baby, and I had gestational diabetes, moms who have had their gut biome gutted, right? And then probiotics, that makes sense. Mitch and I were literally talking about
Yeah.
when there's certain segments, right, where that's to Pete's point. There are folks who, they know what
Yeah.
makes these B2C segments tick.
Yeah.
And they know you talk to this influencer, you're gonna get to 5,000 of these consumers, right? Or this big box retailer, Target, is a really good fit for getting to the beige parent aesthetic or that customer segment, right? Which I was just talking about earlier. So that's the difference, is like B2C, you really need to understand style and preferences, and like some people, for them, right, like their preferences for having like very healthy ingredients, that's like their whole persona, right? But if that's not yours, you don't understand it as a brand manager. And so
Yeah.
you have to partner up and find people to do it. All right, thanks, Kate.
I think,
Wanna add?
you know, it's a great ad. I think like, so, but to get to your question, like of make somebody believe they have a problem, it's, I think this is where Grace was going. It is, you are helping raise awareness about a situation. So that's what marketing is. So that you make them aware and raise the perception of value of what you offer. That's what marketing is. If it doesn't do those two things, it's not working. Okay. Technology and any type of technology, whether it's a probiotic drink or cosmetics or anything, all technology is built to solve a problem, and in doing so, creates problems. It is a never-ending cycle. I've seen, now being in the business for 35 years with software, we create software to solve a problem, and then it creates a whole other bunch of problems, right? Like, you know, ask anybody if there was like a need to have, you know, a social media management platform, right, for marketing. Problem didn't exist. Like, but then when social media became a thing, a viable channel, then all of a sudden that then became a thing to manage, right? Okay. So is the market big enough? Like, if you think of it this way, it's really a filter. And again, I'm bringing this back up, but for my example, right, so this is development teams need to prevent API failures. We want to, the way they measure value is reducing downtime costs by X percentage within Y, right? A very specific smart goal. You want to ask customers to tell you about business value in terms of a smart goal. And then, this is a thing that they want, predictive alerts, currently experiencing, that makes it urgent. The leader can approve up to X dollars, and they've got a team ready to go, and there's like 1,000 companies. So MongoDB, you guys probably haven't heard about this, but they literally did the ECP thing. It's one of the few companies you can find in the wild that like talks about it, because most companies won't talk about all their foibles in the beginning. They're just all successes, right, until they're not. Right? I mean, right? But what happened is they were going, like they made a specific focus on these dev teams with extremely focused criteria. And then they broadened it to an ICP a little bit later. Here, they're validating that their product solves a problem. Here, they're actually starting to market and create demand for their product. We're going to not have time, but this is something, you know, honestly, I'll put it out there. You guys can screenshot this now or use your phone. I built what I call an ECP qualification framework, so you can use this to answer questions for your own venture, okay? And when we have a different format, sometimes we actually take a minute and everybody puts heads down and you know, you guys go to work on it, okay? And again, you'll get this. Don't worry, you'll get the slides if I pass through this. Okay, so here's the thing. Like, you're going to have all these companies, right? And what you want to do is start filtering. So think about it. Look across your company. So let's say you've done discovery with like 100 companies or 100 people. You want to then, like, this is the beauty of AI now. You can just give AI your spreadsheet and tell it to find intent signals and, you know, matches even when the way you wrote it in the spreadsheet is not normalized. But just imagine, right? you go through and as you're doing your customer discovery, you're recording jobs to be done. Well, now you can find all customers with the same job to be done, all customers that have the same way of measuring value. They also have the same willingness to pay. They have the same urgency, quick decision-making, implementation. You see what's happening? Like, you're going to go from 100 customers up here, you're going to find 2. And that's okay. It's okay. That isn't your startup grand plan. It's just how you get started. And you know, guess what? All of these customers have identical this. So now you can go build one version of your product, MVP, right? You can use one set of messaging. You can use one set of value proposition because you know they all measure the value of your product the same way. How big is it? It just depends on what market you're in. Name an industry where there are fewer than 10 companies in the entire world. Anybody? Hui?
So like B2A, like this is selling to AI agents.
I was just gonna say companies that build rockets.
Thank you, yes. Or commercial airliners. If you are gonna go and try to build a product that SpaceX or NASA is gonna buy, well, like you're gonna do a lot more homework because you only have a market of like 2 to 5 companies. So you're gonna have to have something very valuable because I don't know how you make a $100 million a year business when there's only 2 companies in the market unless you have a $100 million a year product for them. So that there's a little tension between how many companies are in your market, that TAM and so forth, to actually how much money can you actually even make in the market. And it's a inverse proportion. You have to make, when you have fewer companies, accounts in the market, you have to make more money from them. So that means you have to solve a different problem that has a way higher value. If you have 1 million customers in your market, you can charge $10 a month and make $100 million a year. Maria?
You mentioned intent signals. What exactly
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I kind of like snuck that in. Yeah, so there's a thing called like signals marketing, and this gets into some advanced stuff, but when you're starting to do marketing campaigns, there's all these tools out there that will summarize all the activities of companies, and it'll do things like take their financial earnings reports. It'll take blog posts, news articles, and it'll look for things they're saying like, oh, like, you know, we're gonna double down our investment in so-and-so. Like, that's a signal, right, that you can now say, oh, they're ready to buy. Let me go talk to them first, right? So there's a study that was done, I don't know if it was Harvard, but it basically says, like, look, it's the 95-5 rule. Anytime you're trying to sell something, 95% of the companies that you think are your best customers are not gonna buy from you. They're just not ready. Because product cycles and other things, like you buy a new TV every 5 years, you get a new phone every 2-3 years, you're just not in the market, right? And that's true for everything. So at any time, only 5% of who you think you're gonna sell to is actually even considering buying. So you need to factor that in and look for signals that tell you better that they're the ones that are worth spending the time on. Okay, so I built this tool. Actually, I built this for October when I was here. It says ICP framework, but it has all of the information in it for an ECP also. But this way you can use one for your ECP and your ICP. And what it does is if you scan this, it's just a Google sheet and you can make a copy. And it has major categories on the far left, then an attribute for each of those categories, a definition, and then kind of where you want to put your hypothesis. And then you have, infinite rows out to the right where you can start to capture each customer. And so you can start to build a database of these individual attributes so you can start to get a sense of what are the characteristics that define my ECP and my ICP from a data perspective. Not what I think they want or I feel would be a good customer, but the ones that you've done the discovery, you've asked why 5 to 7 times, and you've now figured out that they indeed have these characteristics. So you'll be able to scan this and get that. And yeah, I mean, I think that was it. Like we have a working session, and that was really it, Grace. So I know we can either work on this a little bit.
We do a 15 minutes.
Yeah, so if we have time, if y'all want to do that, I think this could be a lot of fun. Who wants to do that, or who just wants me to stop talking? Go ahead. See, you raised your hand at the exact right time. Jade. Question? Oh, you want to do it?
Oh yeah, I was like, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, so I think, yeah, you can scan that, or here, I'll put this one up. And are you guys at all in teams? Are they not teams? Okay, good. So you all have to work individually. Even that's the case, work like with your neighbor, ask questions, and then I'll be here to answer. And I can answer questions also while we're working on this. By the way, I would love to see these too. Yeah, I would love.
I can
Yeah.
ask them to share it.
Yeah. Yeah, Hui.
Yeah, I have a question about like, because like traditionally when you do customer discovery for like B2B SaaS,
Yeah.
like you try to enhance the productivity of a user, trying to help them create more value. But from my understanding, my experience right now with AI agents, it's like you try to do end-to-end work where you're essentially substituting the user.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how should you approach like?
It's a good insight. So one of the things Hui was bringing up is this, and actually I'll have a slide for this when we talk on Thursday. So up until like, I would say mid part of 2023, end of 2023, so there's a shift that started to happen in software. Up until that point, like 99.9% of all business software was written to enable the user to do a better job. And the change is that now software is being written to do the job. Okay, so that creates a bit of a predicament, but a huge opportunity. Why? Because now, so if you think of it before, you built your software and it was like going to make the user more productive. It was going to make them better at managing their sales pipeline or their marketing or the drug discovery pipeline, whatever it is. It was difficult at best to say how, when I enable Sarah here in front of me to do this job, that is connected to business value. But when the software does the job, you have an outcome. And so you can have a conversation with the customer about what's the value of doing the job. And that opens an entirely new pricing model around outcome-based strategy. I'm playing around. I'm doing a presentation on pricing AI for the Scale Venture Partners Summit on April 22nd. And one of the slides I have is, we're transitioning from, we say SaaS. I say we're transitioning from SaaS to SaaS. And it's a play on words because I say we're transitioning from seats as a service to success as a service. And so people are more and more going to be buying success instead of buying a seat for a person to use. We're still going to have that. We're still going to have, per user price. It still applies. But AI has opened up the opportunity to create things that do the job. Yeah. And so that then becomes a discussion with the customer about how do they think about value creation in their business? Where are their priorities around what the human and AI interaction is? How do they think about the outputs of that? There are some regulated industries that might have a big problem with that. There are others that let's go for it, right? So it's a great question. We're going to cover a little bit more of it on Thursday, pricing. Yeah, really good question. Was everybody able to open it? Everybody? Yep.
Spreadsheet, not the Google Doc, right?
Well, there's two different ones.
Yeah.
There's a Google Doc, which is sort of like a way for you to think through your ECP. This one is just a spreadsheet for you to actually write in what you think. Like this idea, like these hypotheses, like answer the question, what do you think the job to be done you're solving for your customer? What do you think is the pain and the gain? What do you think, so on and so forth? And then every column to the right of that, what you could do, I don't know if I did it, there really should be one row above this that says customer, right, or company, or right, whatever, because then all the columns on the right then become the answer for each company you talk to.
So you assume like when you're filling this out that you have like the one or two like specific people that like you're speaking to, like
Yeah,
right?
that's part of the art of customer discovery is finding those people.
Okay, and this is like a side
Yeah,
like
of course.
question, but when you were talking about like inputting like a spreadsheet into like a chat GPT or something like that and getting like intent signals, well I know LLMs get overwhelmed with like a lot of words, so what's a good, like if you've done like 100 customer discovery interviews, how can you parse down your
Yeah. Oh my gosh, such a great
tips?
company. Yeah. Okay, so a question rather. So number one, different tools work better with this stuff. So for example, Claude, and I think ChatGPT 4.0 will do this a little bit, but Claude, it will go out and it'll write some software using Python to help sort of consolidate, like put all of what's in the spreadsheet into a data frame. And then that just it gets into some complex stuff, but Claude does all the work. And then what it then does is it uses some other library, it like just summons them, this is the beauty of AI, to like look at these things, and those software libraries that have already been written then do the work of like looking for similarity, intent, looking for differences in semantics, nuance, like, and when you're doing all that customer discovery, there's an entire software industry built on changing handwritten notes and like unstructured feedback from these kinds of surveys, and then tagging those things. It's called coding. So you code, and then that way you have a normalized data set so that then you can run analysis on it. And that whole industry is going to get turned upside down because you don't need to do any of that anymore. Now, right, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you're saying like have them give you code to then process.
Well, what I'm saying is I would look at a tool like Claude's Pro because it can handle some large stuff. And now you all have access to AI Studio. If you do aistudio.google.com, you get access to Gemini 2.5 Pro. It has 1 million token context length. You can shove that whole thing in there and it's nothing short of magic. Okay. So you don't need an account or anything. Like, it's a little bit of a less friendly user interface, but it's easy to use. And I'm telling you, it'll blow you. Anybody here using AI Studio regularly? Okay.
So you're saying we get that because we have Google accounts with the
That, and it's just free to everybody. I mean, Google's in a race, right? Just like everybody else. So they're making these products available because they understand what I said to you guys way early. Product alone isn't enough. The difference maker in entrepreneurship is distribution. And Google has better distribution than any other contender right now. Why? Because there are more smartphones in the world that run Android than any other platform. And Chrome browser is still the king. I mean, everybody's on Maps, everybody's on YouTube, right? The ability for Google to distribute and get to customers it's not even close. Like Microsoft is like an order of magnitude worse because they don't have a consumer business. Google's the only one with a built-in consumer business. They've got 12 products with more than 1 billion users. So what are they doing? They're just shoving things into the channel to let people use it for free so that they start using it, become accustomed, and then you'll bake in a lot of your processes, and then at some point they'll ask you to sign up or go from a Gmail to Gmail Plus or something, right?
Yeah. So like, is the privacy like ChatGPT where it's like you put info in there and then if you prompt it right, like it'll take your information like back out? Like, do you know what Google's? I mean, I can just Google.
You can look at their user, yeah, but I mean, frankly, with that stuff, I trust Google more than OpenAI. I mean, we have to remember OpenAI was the one that scraped all the YouTube videos to train their models, right? Right? I mean, like.
So, Pete,
Yeah.
we are down to our last 7 minutes.
Okay.
Class, and so maybe all the students can reserve reserve and share their ECPs with you
Yeah.
on Thursday at
Yeah,
the
sure.
class. Do you want to switch gears here and then maybe take any other open?
I'm happy to, however y'all want to run it. Yep, however you want to run it.
Max has a question.
Okay, Max. Hi.
Hi. So once you do have an idea of your ECP, you've got your 2 to 10 customers that you really want to focus on.
Yep.
What is the best way to go about actually contacting those individuals at those companies, finding that buyer persona that you were talking about?
Yeah. So this outreach, well, I think part of it's going to be very difficult for you to have a real ECP if you haven't talked to any customers yet. So that'll be sort of like a hypothesis. And then you're going to use that to now maybe start to go out and do customer discovery. So I would actually flip it around and I would say, go talk to customers first. Don't worry about trying to get your ECP done. Instead, think about maybe your SOM, right? The bigger group, and just you have your hypothesis about a problem that you want to solve. Think of companies that want to solve that problem, and then make that the question you're asking you, which is, Pete, how do I go do customer discovery? Because I think that's really the question. Because the ECP will come after that. Does that follow?
Yeah.
You're not going to have enough data to create an ECP unless you've actually already talked to a bunch of customers.
I guess it's like, then how do you, if you have spoken to those customers, you do know them, and then they frame your ECP, then how do you go about actually getting them to sign a contract with you? That's
Okay.
more my question.
Yeah. All right. So how are y'all? I'm worried that you guys. I'm worried first that you guys are actually going out and talking with potential customers. Forget about the signing a contract thing. Because I think there's probably a need to figure out how do I actually go and reach people, right? Okay. Let's start there, and then we figure out signing the contract later. So.
Because you don't want to sign a contract now.
So here's what I would recommend. And I actually have a write-up on this I'll share with Grace, which is there's a way to ask for warm intros. So you have something, you're in a very privileged position being here. You have access to something that the rest of the world doesn't have. You have access to a Michigan Wolverine network. And you're in an ELP program, within a CFE program, within the College of Engineering. There are a lot of alumni that you can go find that are older people like me that have been around the block a few times. So that's number one, how do I start finding the intersection between the people I think I want to serve and then this network where I might be able to get a warm connection, right? The harder part is how do I actually get this person to talk to me? And the secret, this is a life secret, people like to talk about themselves. People have a very strong motivation around self-interest. So what I have done and where I've been successful is you make it about them. You show up being of service, trying to help them on a problem that they're struggling with. And so the way I do that is I do Google searches. I go on LinkedIn. I look for people that are posting things or have been that have replied to a comment, or I just look for anything that'll tell me this person might have this problem that I want to solve. That's step one. I mean, you got to be scrappy. You've got to be resourceful. You've got to really grind on this. So once you have identified this person, what I typically do there is I do now a broader search on that person. I look for news articles, I look for blog posts, I look for anything that's in the professional sphere. And then I, of course, look for connections to that person. Do I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody? But at the point where you're now maybe getting introduced or you want to send an email or a LinkedIn message, or whatever, it's like, hey, Max, I saw what you wrote on that LinkedIn article and I was 100% inspired. And I saw that you're trying to solve this problem. As it turns out, I'm a student at Michigan. I'm in this program, and I am solely, relentlessly focused on solving this problem that you brought up. And because of that, I'm happy to share what I've learned so far. So see, the mistake is thinking that you're a student, you're an early stage entrepreneur, that you don't know anything, or that what the information you have is not valuable, and the inverse is true. You have a gift, the gift of focus and of time that everybody else in the world doesn't have. So you are fixated on solving this problem. And so you're going to be looking at this in ways that others aren't. And that is something that you have to offer as value. So, show up and say, hey, I noticed, it sounded like you're trying to solve this problem. I'm a student. This is my sole area of research. I'm trying to, build a product around this. I'm happy to share what I've learned if it might be interested of you and see, what your feedback is. Like, I'm not pitching my product. I'm not showing up asking for coffee. No one wants coffee with you guys. I'm sorry. It's just whoever's telling you that, stop doing that. No one wants coffee. It's just true. Like, it's just appeal to people on like, what are they trying to get done, right? Like, just find it, figure it out. Just figure it out. Like, what are they trying to get done? And then help them do it. It's so easy. It's so easy. But you got to put yourself out there. And then have something to back it up, right? Like, maybe have written something up. Like, if, I do all this work now, like, I've got literally anything from 2-pager to a 10-pager on the theory of, like, how the scope of a problem has an, outsized input on how you're going to monetize. Like, because I think about this stuff all the time. And so, like, I have these things that I can give to somebody, like, as a piece of value. Like, oh, hey, I wrote something about that. Here, take a look at this. Let me know what you think. So